Well, hi again, everyone, and welcome to this afternoon's webinar presented by the Georgia State University Alumni Association. I'm Dave Cohen, coming to you from the Alumni Center in Atlanta. Today, we present another in our alumni webinar series, and our topic today is Unlocking the Three Secrets to Strategic Thinking and How Strategic Thinking Can Help You Build a Better Career. We'd like to welcome in our viewers this afternoon, joining us on our StreamYard platform, as well as those watching on Facebook Live and on YouTube Video Live. We will have a question and answer segment following the presentation. Questions can be submitted on the StreamYard platform or by posting on our Facebook site if you're watching us via Facebook Live. Our guest speaker today is an alumni of Georgia State University, class of 2007. And right now, it's my pleasure to introduce today's guest speaker and presenter, Diane Bogino, President of Performance Strategies Incorporated. Diane, great to have you with us this afternoon. I know we're looking forward to today's presentation.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you to Georgia State, and especially today for inviting me. Will you be moving this year? Maybe your family, maybe an elderly parent, or maybe just yourself. Will you be getting a new job or maybe a promotion at the job you're in already? Will you be moving overseas or maybe you'll be working virtually with people from other nations? Will you be expanding your business with new products and services, or maybe you'll have to research new products and services and find out what they might mean for your customers? When you think about all of the people, the processes, and the strategic thinking that goes into each of these activities, and when you think about all of these things could happen to the same person at the same time, it could be overwhelming. But today we're going to ask the questions: do you need a career strategy or a career plan? Do you need a business strategy or a business plan? And we'll answer those questions in just a few minutes. What is strategic thinking? And you may wonder, why do I have to do strategic thinking? Isn't that something just the CEO does, or maybe people in the C-suite? Isn't that just relegated to them? And I'll bet that if I asked everybody on this webinar today for their definition of strategic thinking, each one of you would have a different definition. They might vary a little bit, or they might vary widely. And yes, you could Google it, and you'll find definitions like being reflective, being creative, being analytical, planning. And strategic thinking is not a linear process, as some people think. It is all of these things. And last week, I attended 2 different meetings, and I heard more definitions. Someone came up with strategic optimism. Now, we know from studies that optimistic people are more successful than pessimistic people. So maybe we need to do some strategic thinking about how we can be more optimistic. Another person suggested that strategic thinking should be being collaborative, having some dialogue, and working with other people. And yes, those are true too. So strategic thinking involves a lot. So we're going to unlock the 3 secrets of strategic thinking, how strategic thinking can help you build a better career and a business, the art and science behind making better decisions and problem solving, and why that's important to you, and thinking in a world of accelerating change. Now, Henry Mintzberg is a business consulting guru. And his definition of strategic thinking is thinking ahead. And a lot of people will agree with him that it is thinking ahead. But Henry takes it a step further, or maybe a couple of steps further, because he suggests that strategic thinking is also not only thinking ahead, but thinking behind, thinking above, thinking below, thinking beside, and thinking beyond, and thinking it through. So according to Henry's definition, maybe we should all look like this. Well, don't worry, we don't need to get plastic surgery, but Speaking of having eyes in the back of our head, we're all familiar with the blind spots that we have when we're driving, and they can be dangerous at times. But also, almost as dangerous is thinking like this: everyone else has blind spots, but we don't. So we have blind spots about how other people see us. So others may see us as being a clown, they may see us as being silly, or they may see us as just having a great sense of humor. Others may see us as being disengaged or uncaring. Others may see us as being magical because we can pull projects and successes seemingly out of our hat with no effort. And still others may see us as being assertive, aggressive, demanding, maybe just difficult to deal with. But here is where we answer our questions. Do we need a strategic a strategy, a career strategy, or a career plan? Do we need a business strategy or a business plan? And the answer is yes. And strategy is often disguised as everyday activities, maybe even seemingly mundane activities. And self-assessment is one of those activities. But when we do self-assessment, we unlock intellectual curiosity because we get outside of ourselves. We have a conscious awareness because now our antennae are up. We have clearer insights and openness, maybe to our own biases. And biases don't just include politics, race, and religion, but biases about how we do things. Maybe how we do things needs to change, and change is not easy. And it makes us better critical thinkers. Now, some people confuse strategic thinking and critical thinking, but as Henry Mintzberg says, strategic thinking is thinking ahead. Critical thinking is more analytical. And self-assessment is important because it is the first secret to strategic thinking, because it unlocks our blind spots by using self-awareness, allowing us to be critical thinkers, have that intellectual curiosity, have clear insights and openness, and a conscious awareness. So now let's look at the second secret and what that might involve. The second secret involves business acumen. And business acumen is both a collective and a specific knowledge and about how things get done and why they get done. It's also a key characteristic for leadership. It shows up in the questions someone asks and the decisions they make. Developing a business acumen can help give you the knowledge you need to have a long and successful career. But this begs the question, how do we get business acumen? How much business acumen do we need? Let's take a look. We need to understand our organization's business strategies, and this is true whether you're a business owner or whether you have a position in a business. You can't understand the business unless you understand the strategies that the business is trying to implement. Products and services. What products and services does your organization sell? How do those products and services serve your customers? And these are both external and internal customers. What products and services will those customers need for the future? How does the company make its money? This is an entire process and strategy in and of itself. It's important to know. You need to understand finances. Now, just like you don't need a business acumen at the level of a CEO, you don't need to be a CPA or a CFO. But if you're not currently managing a budget, when you get into the C-suite, you certainly will manage a budget, and it could be quite large, and it might be complicated. And this reminds me of a story. Recently, I had a client who was in her 30s, and she kept telling me she wanted to get into leadership. And she made it quite plain that she wanted to do this very badly. She wanted to make sure that her resume and her cover letter reflected that. She wanted to make sure that she indicated that when she interviewed. And finally, one day I said, "What is so interesting to you or appealing to you about getting into the C suite?" She came back and said, "What is the C suite?" Obviously, this is a very low business acumen. All she wanted to do was have or lead a team of maybe 6 people for analytics. And when I told her about the C suite and that it involved the CEO, the CFO, and all that, she said, "Oh, no, no, no. I don't want that level of responsibility at all." So when you look at your own level of business acumen, are you at that level? Are you at the CEO level? And where are you in between those two? Do you need more education to develop that business acumen? And I'll bet that Georgia State has some great classes and schools that you can attend to get that additional education on business acumen if you need it. Get yourself a mentor or a coach. Now, if your organization does not have a culture of mentoring or coaching, it might be a little more difficult for you to find someone internally. But look around, do your networking, which you should be doing anyway to build your career. Find someone you trust. If you can't, you can find someone outside the organization. They can still be effective as a mentor. Look, there's a coach on every corner, and there are different prices. There are some expensive coaches out there, and there are some cheap ones out there like myself. But interview 3 coaches. Find out who is a good fit for you, and if you can work well together. It will be worth it. I can promise you that. So now we have solved the second secret of strategic thinking, unlocking the secret for business acumen, understanding the business. This helps us to be better problem solvers because now we know what the problems are because we understand the business better, the strategies, the products and services, how the company makes its money. We can now make better decisions because we know what the problems are. We can have discernment. In other words, now we can see what might not be so obvious. And we can focus on priorities because we know what they should be. Looking at these elements here, the problem solving, decision making, discernment, focus on priorities, critical thinking, intellectual curiosity, clear insights, openness, and conscious awareness. Do you think having those skills and abilities would make you a valuable employee? Now, before we go to the third level, if you lived in medieval times, thinking at that third level just simply would not have been permitted. And I'm going to tell you why that's true in just a few minutes. But if you did think at that level, you would be opening the secret not only to the third level, but also to Pandora's box. You would be up on charges of heresy and you would find yourself laying out very nicely on the rack. But this third level of strategic thinking also has to do with thinking in a world of accelerating change, like today. A few years ago, we did not know that there were trends or that we needed to be looking for them. Then a few years later, we understood that, yes, there are trends, and yes, we do need to be looking for them. But today, things change at such a rapid rate that not only do we need to understand that there are trends and that we need to be looking for them, that we need to stay ahead of them in order to be competitive. Now, what do you think your industry would require? Let's look at the fashion industry and how they might have to think. By the nature of fashion, the future is the present, and you always have to project your present into a future you hope will be the present when the time comes. Now, what if you had to think like that? And maybe you do. But here's what the fashion industry discovered. They discovered that if they look at pictures on Instagram, they can project maybe 6 to 12 months in the future because of the things that people wear, the articles of clothing that people wear and what they prefer. And they could take that with their intuition, compile it with some data, and come out with some hard facts to help them predict trends in fashion. So here's the question for you. Where, how, or who is your Instagram? Where are you going to find the trends for your industry to build your career? I'm not going to leave you hanging. Here are some ideas. Sources for keeping up with and staying ahead of trends. Watch videos. Even YouTube is a great source for videos about almost anything. Watch webinars, attend webinars, read articles, listen to podcasts. Now, I have 2 podcasts. Mine happen to be both video, but I interview on one of them business people. So there's a way to stay ahead and up to date on what's happening. But I said, I want to go a step further for my audience today. So I started researching influential thought leaders. And I found a website. You see it here listed here on the top. And of course, this is being recorded, but if you want these, I'll send them to you. Just email me. My email's at the bottom of the page or at the bottom of the slide. So there's 200 thought leaders on this website. And they cover every industry from A to Z, from automotives to zoology to food, technology, fashion, everything in between. Here's what you do. Find 3 that appeal to you and follow them. And then I got to thinking futuristic thinkers, people like Elon Musk. Now, he creates the future more than he thinks about it, but there were only 10 of these, so they're rare. And some of them have some outlandish ideas, but their outlandish ideas a few years ago are our reality today. So we need to pay attention to them. So that's another website that you can look at. And if you wonder if you're a futuristic thinker or not, when I do my coaching, I give people a battery of assessments, and your futuristic thinking skill can actually be measured, believe it or not. So if that's something that you want to look into, just give me a call. So now here we have unlocked the 3rd secret of strategic thinking. Unlocking futuristic thinking, because this allows us to create the new and different. Now you see why you might be laying on the rack if you did this in medieval times. They weren't interested in the new and different. They just wanted to keep the status quo. But when we think at this level, we can manage change better because now we kind of know what's coming down the pike, don't we? We know what's laying ahead of us. We can deal with ambiguity better. Think about this hurricane that just came through and that cone that covered our state and how it changed every day. We were dealing with ambiguity every day, and we do it every day in our ordinary lives, hurricane or not. And innovative management and perspective taking. We need innovative management today more than ever. You know, when you think back about 20, 15, 10 years, and the jobs that have been created in that time span, think about the last 2 years because of COVID and the jobs that have been created just because of a pandemic. Think about the difference it has made in the workplace and how we work today. And boy, do we need innovative management around that. Employers are struggling with this virtual workspace or not to come into the office or whatever. So there's a lot going on around this. Now, strategic thinking is the key to unlocking all of those things we talked about. But wait, there's more. Strategic thinking also allows us to be inspiring and to create inspiration. It allows us the ability to create a vision for our careers, for our businesses, for our lives. We can create a better career, business growth, and leadership. Because remember, when we have those skills of strategic thinking and all that involves, we become more valuable employees, we become promotable, we become someone that a business wants to hang on to and reward. Strategic thinking helps guide and manage change, and we talked about that. Here's a better strategic planning. You know, yesterday I had someone ask me about hiring. Some people think hiring begins at the interview session. No. Some people think it begins with the job description. No. It begins with strategic planning, because when you do strategic planning, now you know what you need, who you need, the skills you need, the attributes, the knowledge you need to move your company forward. So you need to be one of those people. Then you can write your job description, and then you can do the interviewing to meet that job description. So you get a much better fit. And the ability to build new strategies. Strategic thinking is obviously an important tool for you to build your career, build your business, and build your life. What questions do you have for me?
Really good presentation, Diane.
Thank you.
And anybody that has any questions can submit those. Someone did at the very beginning of the presentation, and I think this was, something that you brought up, if not in words, but in theory throughout, and that is fail to plan means plan to fail.
That's right. That's exactly right, because you have to do strategic thinking, and that involves strategic planning. So if you don't do that, you're going to fail strategically.
It seems like people think strategically, whether it's in the world of employment search, strategic thinking, people are doing it throughout the day, and they probably don't even realize they're doing it. They're thinking strategically about what they've got to pick up from what store on the way home after work.
Right.
I mean, it's really the thought process of thinking ahead with strategic thinking, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, how are you going to do that? You have to lay out the strategies of how you're going to get things done, just like the self-assessment. It is a strategy, and then the planning on how to do that. So it then encompasses the entire strategy. Now, are you going to just make a list? Are you going to get assessments? Are you going to get a coach? And then how are you going to go about doing that? So yes, you're absolutely right. You think about things every day, and how are you going to lay out the strategy to get them done?
Someone submitted a question about the best way to select a business coach when you were talking about finding a business coach that could assist. It's one of those things that without meeting someone, in other words, there's that time period of getting to know the person, to know if it's a good fit. For someone who's never selected a business coach before, what recommendation would you make for how to find that right person when it's someone that they haven't met before?
Good question. There are websites with coaches on them, and you can go on there and read their bios, and you can interview people. I offer a 30-minute complimentary conversation, because just for that reason, because if I'm not a good fit, I will help you find a coach. In fact, I had a client who I could just tell the sessions weren't going well. We had about 3 sessions. And as it turned out, he preferred working with a male, and that was fine. And so I found 2 male coaches. I just happened to know them. So he interviewed both of them and decided on one, and they had great sessions together. So it's just a matter of finding them on the web, networking with people you know. If you're an association, people may know them, and then they should offer you that 30-minute complimentary session. If they don't, then you don't want to deal with them.
How does strategic thinking and in the world of networking, when we talk about looking for employment, strategic thinking, networking, is there a crossover there between those two areas?
Absolutely. Networking has to be strategic in that you have to be strategic about where you network. If you're in a particular industry, you're not going to go off to some other industry and network. Not that that couldn't work, but you've got to know people who know people who know people, and people who know you. So you have to be strategic about that. You have to be strategic about the people that you want to meet. And that's not being Machiavellian, that's just being strategic and finding, making a shortcut to get to where you want to go. And it's not about, you don't go in there with the attitude, how can people help me? How can I get what I want? But finding out about other people and finding out how you can help them, that makes you the go-to person. And that's a great strategy.
A couple of other questions have come in. What do you think about an astrologist or psychics?
I think they're fine. I know some actually. I know a gentleman named Dave Haskins, and he really is dedicated to his work. Now, agreed. There's a lot of fly-by-nighters out there, but there are people that take that very seriously, and I think there's some science to that as well. And depending on what they do, I happen to know Dave. I'm not getting paid to recommend Dave or anything, but I just know him personally, and I know what he does in his work and the depth that he goes to put into his work. So you've got to find someone like that. Again, it's an interviewing process and digging and networking.
Who or where has provided you your greatest objective insight as you have worked in this field?
Well, I'm in a lot of mastermind groups, which I highly recommend. They can be people that are in your industry or not. Mine, for the most part, are. And when you have those collective minds, that's important because then you get a lot of great ideas. So find yourself a good mastermind group to get into, and that will be quite helpful to you. Some run all the time, some or have a limited time span. But if you find a mastermind group, I think you'll find a lot more information. They have been very helpful to me over the years.
So once again, what's the best way for any of our viewers today to get in touch with you if they would like more information, would like to talk to you about anything further that you've covered in today's webinar?
Well, you can email me at diane@dianebogino.com or call me at 404-320-7834, and I'll be happy to talk to you.
Diane, great presentation today. The Georgia State Alumni Association and our alumni watching today appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
All right, we'd like to thank everyone for watching with us today. We hope you found Diane's presentation to be educational and helpful. And again, on that last slide that you see are her contact information if you'd like to talk to her further. Remember to visit the Alumni Association online at alumni.gsu.edu for upcoming events and programs. So for Diane Bogino, class of 2007, Dave Cohen saying thanks for watching and good evening from the Georgia State University Alumni Center in Atlanta.